What if the most dangerous stroke warning doesn't last long enough to scare you? What if the sign that could save your life shows up while you're pouring coffee, buttoning your shirt, or walking to the mailbox, and then disappears before your family even notices? That's exactly why mini strokes are so deadly. Not because they always cause immediate damage, but because they trick good people into doing nothing. And tonight, somewhere in America, a man in Ohio or a woman in Texas is going to brush off a warning that lasts 5 minutes, maybe 10, and by tomorrow or the next day, their life could be permanently changed. I'm Dr. Sandra Whitemore, and after more than 2 decades caring for older adults with cardiovascular and brain circulation problems, I need to tell you something as plainly as I can. A mini stroke is not your body overreacting. It is not stress until proven otherwise. It is not just fatigue, low blood sugar, poor sleep, or getting older. It is your brain sending an emergency signal that blood flow was interrupted, even briefly, and when that happens, the next event can be bigger, faster, and far more devastating. I have seen patients walk into Monday feeling normal, ignore a warning on Tuesday, and wake up on Thursday unable to move one side of their body. Please subscribe right now for simple, life-saving health guidance that protects your heart, brain, and independence with every video today. And I want you to stay with me. Because sign number 1 is the one people ignore most often. It's the sign that fools intelligent, independent adults into saying, well, I feel fine now, so it couldn't have been serious. That single thought has cost families speech, mobility, memory, and precious time they can never get back. By the end of this video, you're going to know the 8 warning signs your body may give before a major stroke, the symptom that vanishes just long enough to deceive you, and exactly what to do if any one of these happens to you or someone you love. Before we get into the list, you need to understand one thing that changes everything. A mini stroke, what doctors call a transient ischemic attack, can look exactly like a major stroke in the beginning. Exactly. Same slurred words, same drooping face, same weak arm, same sudden confusion. The only difference is that the blockage clears before permanent injury becomes obvious. But when those symptoms happen, you do not know yet whether they will fade in 10 minutes or become a full stroke that leaves lasting damage. That is why waiting it out at home is such a dangerous gamble, especially if you are over 60. Let me start with a man I'll call Walter from Tampa, Florida, because his story never left me. Walter was 74, a retired school bus driver, proud, sharp, disciplined. One morning he lifted his coffee mug and noticed his right hand felt strange, almost disconnected. Then his lower lip felt numb. He tried to say something to his wife, but the first sentence came out thick and clumsy. 10 minutes later, everything was back to normal. He told himself he must have slept wrong, maybe pinched a nerve, maybe needed breakfast. He did not call 911. He did not call his doctor. 2 mornings later, Walter suffered a larger stroke that left him with weakness he never fully recovered from. So as we go through these 8 signs, I want you to picture real life, not a medical textbook. I want you to picture your breakfast table, your hallway mirror, your church parking lot, your grocery cart, your front porch, because that's where these warnings show up. Not always in dramatic movie scenes. Sometimes in the quiet middle of an ordinary American day. And when they do, you do not need to diagnose yourself. You do not need to be certain. You just need to recognize the red flag and move fast. Sign number 8 is a face that suddenly feels numb, heavy, or looks uneven in the mirror. And this can be so subtle that people miss it completely. Maybe you rinse your mouth after brushing your teeth and water dribbles from one corner. Maybe your lipstick goes on crooked. Maybe your grandson says, "Grandma, smile again," because one side of your mouth didn't lift the same way. Sometimes it feels like dental numbness. Sometimes it feels like your cheek has gone dead. And because there's no pain, many people assume it can't be serious. That assumption is a mistake. A woman I'll call Elaine from Columbus, Ohio, noticed it while getting ready for her granddaughter's piano recital. And at first it seemed almost silly. She smiled in the mirror and one side of her mouth lagged behind the other. Then she felt a strange numb patch along her cheek and thought maybe it was sinus trouble. She almost ignored it. But her daughter happened to stop by, saw Elaine try to speak, and realized something was wrong. Elaine got evaluated quickly. It was a mini stroke. Had she stayed home and waited, that temporary warning could have become something much worse. Here's why facial drooping matters. The muscles of your face depend on precise signals traveling from your brain. If blood flow is briefly interrupted in the wrong place, those signals get scrambled. Suddenly, the smile becomes uneven. The face feels slack. The cheek goes numb. And because older adults often look tired or asymmetrical for harmless reasons in everyday life, this sign gets dismissed more than it should. But if facial numbness or drooping appears out of nowhere, especially with speech trouble, vision changes, or arm weakness, you treat it like a stroke until a medical team proves otherwise. And I want to say this as clearly as I can, Do not wait to see if your smile comes back. Do not go online and compare photos. Do not finish your errands first. If your face suddenly looks different, feels numb, or won't move normally on one side, that is your body pulling a fire alarm. You may only get that one alarm. Walter got one. Elaine got one. Some people listen. Others wish they had. Sign number 7 is sudden weakness or heaviness in one arm or one leg. And this is one of the most classic warnings, but it doesn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it isn't total paralysis. Sometimes it's just a strange dead weight. Your coffee mug feels too heavy. Your fork slips. Your knee doesn't quite support you. One slipper scuffs the carpet. One arm drifts down when you're trying to hang a shirt or reach for a cabinet. People will tell themselves it's arthritis, a bad shoulder, a tired hip, or just one of those mornings. But weakness that appears suddenly is never something I want ignored. Frank from Scottsdale, Arizona felt it when he stood up from his recliner to answer the phone. His left leg didn't respond the way it normally did. Not pain. Not cramping, just weakness, like the signal between his brain and his leg had turned soft. He shuffled 2 steps, grabbed the table, and by the time he reached the phone, it was already easing. He almost laughed it off. Later that afternoon, his daughter asked him to raise both arms while they were talking, and one arm dropped lower. That brief weakness was his warning. He got help in time. Many people don't. What makes this sign so dangerous, is that people assume real stroke weakness has to be absolute, dramatic, obvious to everyone in the room. That's not true. A mini stroke can cause mild weakness that lasts only a few minutes. But even a mild one-sided weakness means part of the brain may not be getting normal blood flow. If one arm suddenly feels useless, one hand feels clumsy, or one leg feels like it belongs to someone else, that is not ordinary aging. That is an emergency until proven otherwise. Try this simple picture in your mind. If you asked someone to raise both arms and one drifted downward, would you feel comfortable saying, "Let's wait until after lunch"? Of course not. Yet people do exactly that when it happens to them. They minimize it. They negotiate with it. They say they'll mention it at their next appointment. Please don't do that. Sudden one-sided weakness is your body speaking very loudly, even if the symptom itself seems quiet. Sign number 6 is sudden tingling or numbness on one side of the body, especially when it feels strange, new, and doesn't match your usual patterns. Now, I know this one can be confusing because many older adults already live with nerve issues, back problems, or diabetes, so they feel tingling from time to time. But mini stroke numbness tends to be sudden. It often affects the face, arm, or leg on one side. It may feel like your skin is asleep, like your fingertips aren't fully yours, like half your mouth is filled with Novocaine, or like your foot forgot how to report back to your brain. Beverly from St. Louis, Missouri noticed it during Sunday service. She went to open her hymnal and suddenly her left fingertips felt fuzzy and disconnected. Then the numbness crawled into her lips. Not painful, not dramatic, just wrong. She sat there trying to decide whether it was anxiety, poor circulation, or the air conditioning. 8 minutes later, it vanished. Beverly nearly went home and said nothing. Thankfully, her son, who had seen a stroke in his father years earlier, took her straight in to get checked. That small wave of numbness was not harmless. It was a warning shot. The reason I want you to take sudden numbness seriously is because people are much more likely to ignore numbness than weakness. If you can still move the arm, if you can still walk, if you're not in pain, you may think it isn't urgent. But sensation matters. The brain has specialized areas that interpret touch, temperature, and position. A brief interruption in blood flow can distort those signals in an instant. So if one side of your face, hand, arm, or leg suddenly goes numb without a clear explanation, especially if it comes with any other symptom on this list, you do not brush it off. And here's the practical rule. Chronic numbness that behaves the same way every day belongs in a conversation with your doctor. Sudden numbness that appears out of nowhere belongs in an emergency evaluation. That difference matters. Chronic is familiar. Mini-stroke symptoms are usually abrupt, unexpected, and out of character. They interrupt the day. They feel like something has just shifted. If that happens, trust the change. Sign number 5 is speech that suddenly turns slurred, thick, slow, or strangely hard to get out. And this is one of the fastest ways a mini-stroke reveals itself. Maybe your words sound as if your tongue is too big for your mouth. Maybe simple sentences come out mushy. Maybe your spouse asks why you're talking funny. Maybe you know exactly what you want to say, but the words come out wrong anyway. If that happens suddenly, even for a few minutes, it is never something to shrug off. Raymond from Tulsa, Oklahoma, was calling his daughter about a fishing trip when she heard it immediately. She said his words sounded sticky, like he had just come from the dentist. Raymond insisted he was fine. In fact, he got annoyed. He thought she was overreacting. But she knew her father's voice. She knew his rhythm. She knew the difference between being tired and sounding neurologically off. By the time paramedics arrived, his speech had mostly returned. That did not make it less serious. It made it more deceptive. Speech changes happen because different regions of the brain help you form, coordinate, and understand language. A brief reduction in blood flow can make speech slur or cause your mouth muscles not to cooperate. You may hear it as garbled words. Other people may hear it before you do. That's why I tell families this all the time. If the people who know you best say, "You're not talking right," don't argue with them. Listen, your loved ones often recognize the change faster than you will. And let me give you a powerful rule to remember. If a sentence that should come out easily suddenly sounds broken, thick, or tangled, stop everything and act. Do not drink water and wait. Do not assume your dentures shifted. Do not blame dry mouth. Speech difficulty is one of the clearest stroke warnings there is. And when it appears, time matters more than pride. Sign number 4 is sudden confusion or trouble understanding what other people are saying. Now, this one frightens families because it can look like memory loss, early dementia, fatigue, or distraction. But a mini-stroke confusion episode is usually abrupt. One moment, the person is following the conversation, and the next, simple words stop making sense. They may stare. They may answer the wrong question. They may seem mentally not there. They may understand your voice is directed at them, but the meaning doesn't fully land. Nancy from Des Moines, Iowa experienced this in a grocery store line. The cashier asked if she wanted paper or plastic, and Nancy just stood there blinking. Not because she was hard of hearing. Not because she forgot the question. She later said it felt as if the words reached her ears but never fully turned into meaning. Then she tried to respond and used a completely unrelated answer. Within minutes it passed. Had a neighbor not been with her, Nancy would have gone straight home and rested. Instead, she got evaluated, and yes, it was a mini stroke. This matters because people often associate stroke only with weakness. And they overlook the language side of the brain. But when blood flow is briefly disrupted in areas responsible for comprehension, the person may look confused, detached, or strangely slow to process. They may nod even though they don't understand. They may speak clearly but make no sense. Or they may be unable to follow an instruction as simple as, "Show me your right hand." That kind of sudden breakdown is not ordinary forgetfulness. So if someone you love suddenly seems mentally scrambled in a way that is sharp, new, and unlike them, treat it seriously, especially if they were normal 5 minutes ago. The brain doesn't usually switch off language processing for no reason. And the worst thing families do in that moment is talk themselves into the comforting explanation. Maybe she's just tired. Maybe he's overwhelmed. Maybe it's his age. No. Sudden confusion is a warning until proven otherwise. Sign number 3 is sudden vision change in one or both eyes. And, this can be one of the strangest mini-stroke symptoms because it doesn't always feel like a classic eye problem. Some people describe it as a curtain coming down over one eye. Others say part of the room disappears. Some get double vision. Some get a sudden blur they cannot blink away. Some lose vision for only a minute or two and then it returns, which is exactly why they fail to respect how serious it was. Harold from Pinehurst, North Carolina, was lining up a putt on the golf course, when he noticed the flag looked split in two. Then his left eye seemed to dim, almost as if someone lowered a shade. He stood still, waited, and the sight came back. His golf partners urged him to sit down and drink water. Harold almost did exactly that. Instead, because his brother had suffered a stroke years before, he agreed to go in. That quick spell of visual change was not dehydration. It was a warning that blood flow to part of his brain or eye circulation had been disrupted. Vision changes matter because the eyes are not working alone. Your brain interprets what you see, and when circulation is interrupted, vision can go strange very quickly. One eye may go dark. Both eyes may blur. Double vision may appear out of nowhere. The problem may last only moments, but the message is urgent. If your vision suddenly changes and you cannot explain it by something obvious like trauma or a long-standing eye condition, you need emergency care, not a nap. And please hear this. Losing vision briefly does not make it less important. It makes it more important. A symptom that comes, alarms you, and then disappears is exactly the kind of symptom mini strokes are known for. If it happens while driving, reading, walking, or watching television, note the time immediately and call 911. Do not drive yourself. Visual symptoms can be the only early clue you get. Sign number 2 is sudden dizziness, loss of balance, trouble walking, or feeling like the floor has shifted underneath you. Now, I know dizziness is common, and that makes this one tricky. Many people feel lightheaded from standing up too fast, skipping meals, or taking certain medications. But mini-stroke dizziness is often abrupt and unfamiliar. It may come with veering to one side, trouble coordinating your steps, a sensation that the room is violently off, or an inability to walk normally when you were fine just moments before. Joan from Denver, Colorado felt it in the frozen food aisle. She reached for a bag of peas and suddenly felt as if she were on a moving boat. Not faint, not weak, just profoundly unsteady. She grabbed the cart and tried to walk forward, but her body drifted sideways. Then her vision blurred for a moment. A store employee assumed her blood sugar had dropped and offered juice. Thankfully, Joan's husband arrived, saw how she was leaning, and insisted on calling for help. That sudden balance loss turned out to be a real warning sign, not a harmless dizzy spell. Balance and coordination can be affected when circulation changes hit parts of the brain that manage movement, posture, and eye control. So if you suddenly cannot walk straight, suddenly feel intensely off balance, or suddenly seem clumsy in a way that is completely out of character, pay attention. And I also need to mention this. A sudden severe headache with no clear cause, especially if it appears with any of these neurologic symptoms, is never something I want ignored. It may not be the most common mini-stroke sign, but it absolutely belongs on your emergency radar. Here's the simplest way to think about it. Ordinary dizziness often has a pattern you recognize. Stroke-related balance trouble often feels shocking, abrupt, and wrong in a new way. If you go from stable to unsteady in seconds, if you have to grab walls or furniture, if walking suddenly feels unnatural, or if dizziness arrives with speech trouble, vision change, weakness, or numbness, you stop guessing and get help. Now we come to sign number 1, and I want you to lean in for this because it is the sign that puts more people in danger than almost anything else on this list. Sign number 1 is that the symptom disappears. That's right. The vanishing act itself is the warning. The numbness fades. The speech clears. The face straightens. The vision returns. The leg feels normal again. And because you feel rescued, you decide you are safe. But that brief recovery can be the most dangerous moment of all because it tempts you to do nothing. Thomas from Nashville, Tennessee had a 10-minute episode while eating breakfast. His right hand went weak, his words came out slurred, and he felt briefly confused. Then just as suddenly it was over. He looked at his wife and said the sentence I never want to hear. Well, if it was serious, it wouldn't have gone away. They stayed home. 2 days later, Thomas had a larger stroke. When I think about preventable tragedy, I think about sentences like that one. I think about how often the body whispers before it screams. A disappearing symptom does not clear you. It indicts the situation. It tells you something interrupted blood flow and then temporarily released. The danger is not merely what happened in those 5 or 10 minutes. The danger is what may be forming behind the scenes. A clot, a narrowed artery, an irregular heartbeat, an unstable plaque, a circulation problem waiting to strike again. And the second event may not be polite enough to leave. It may not give the movement back. It may not return the speech. It may not restore the vision. So if one of these symptoms comes and goes, you do not celebrate and move on. You note the exact time it started. You call 911. You let emergency professionals evaluate you. And this part matters too. Do not let someone drive you in the family car if emergency services are available. Trained medical teams can start helping sooner, and the hospital can prepare for your arrival. When minutes matter, cutting corners is not wise. And I know what some of you are thinking, Doctor, I don't want to overreact. I don't want to make a fuss. I don't want to sit in an ER for something that already went away. But let me ask you this. Would you rather spend a few hours being told it wasn't a stroke or spend the rest of your life wishing you had gone? That is not drama. That is the decision. Independence is built on small, smart acts of respect for warning signs. Let's pull this together, because I want this burned into your memory. 8 warnings. A face that droops or goes numb. One-sided weakness in an arm or leg. Sudden numbness or tingling on one side. Slurred or strange speech. Confusion or trouble understanding. Sudden vision changes. Abrupt dizziness or balance trouble. And the most deceptive sign of all, symptoms that disappear quickly. Those are not random inconveniences. They are the kinds of changes that can precede a life-altering stroke. Here's what I want you and your family to remember. BEFAST. Balance. Eyes. Face. Arm. Speech. Time. If balance suddenly fails, if vision suddenly changes, if the face looks uneven, if an arm goes weak, if speech turns strange, time is the answer. Call 911. Do not wait for certainty. Do not search the internet first. Do not lie down and see how you feel in an hour. Time matters because brain tissue does not like to wait. I also want you to make this practical tonight. Put your phone where you can reach it easily. Tell your spouse, your children, your neighbors, and your closest friends what these signs look like. If you live alone, Consider telling one trusted person that if you ever call and sound off, they should take it seriously immediately. Too many seniors lose precious minutes because they are alone and trying to be brave. This is not the moment for bravery. This is the moment for action. And if you've had one of these episodes before and never got it checked, please don't use that as a reason to keep ignoring it. Use it as the reason to become more vigilant now. A near miss is still a message. Your body does not owe you repeated warnings. Walter thought he had time. Thomas thought he had proof it wasn't serious because it disappeared. Elaine, Frank, Beverly, Raymond, Nancy, Harold, and Joan all remind us of the same truth. The ordinary day can change very fast. The good news is that a mini stroke can be a second chance if you treat it like one. It can be the moment you get the testing, treatment, and prevention plan that stops a bigger stroke before it happens. That is why I never want you to hear the phrase mini stroke and think mini problem. There is nothing small about a warning that could save your speech, your mobility, your memory, your driving, your independence, or your time with the people you love most. If this video helped you, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone over 60, and type the word FAST in the comments so I know you've locked these warning signs into memory. And more importantly, promise yourself this: if your face changes, your speech changes, your vision changes, your balance changes, or one side of your body suddenly feels wrong, you will not wait for it to pass. You will treat it like the emergency it is. Take care of your brain, protect your independence, and I'll see you in the next video.